Hi, everybody. We are going to give everybody just a few minutes to join, and then we will get started. Thanks for joining. All right, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I am Trisha Howard, aka Trisha Kicks Sass, and I am thankful that you have joined our November episode of the monthly threat brief, the SIG download. Thank you for being here, and a special thank you for being here to my co-host today, Alan West, who's, as his name implies, is on the West Coast. So thank you for being here super early, Alan. How's it going?
It's going good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Alan is a member of our CERT. He brings me a lot of really fun things to work on. So, Alan, before we jump in, do you want to introduce yourself and, kind of what you do here, a little bit about the CERT and what excites you about your job?
Sure. Yeah. So my name is Alan West. I am a security researcher on Akamai's CERT team, which is the Security Intelligence Response Team. And we wear a lot of hats. We do a lot of hats. We do a bunch of different things. So a lot of times we're security researchers, where we're finding threats, building honeypots, things like that. And then a lot of times we're sort of acting as engineers, where we're figuring out what to do with the intelligence we get and making it usable data for other teams and Akamai as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a lovely way to describe the CERT. I always get excited whenever y'all send me a piece because it's going to be exciting. almost always. All right. Never a dull moment. Insecurity at all. And November was certainly no different than that. Every month, I guess, or last month, we had a different theme. This month's theme is DDoS. Globally, there were some really large DDoS attacks and botnets that were being created around the world, which I had, before I'd even decided what we were going to talk about this month, I'd asked Alan to join, and it turns out that this is actually quite fortuitous, as DDoS and botnets is like Alan's world. And so that's so great. The first DDoS attack I think we're going to talk about, of course, made a lot of noise, which was, of course, OpenAI. It affected both ChatGPT as well as their APIs. It was really big news. I know that there was a little bit of discussion around it, but there wasn't a whole lot of information. Did you see anything other than it being layer 7, Alan?
Yeah, so it was mostly layer 7, and it was a couple different attacks that we see pretty commonly. So it was just regular HTTP floods, and then you also had slow LoRa's, and then there's cache bypass, which is one of the smarter attacks. And so that was pretty cool. Not cool, but interesting.
Yes.
From my point of view.
Cool. We know in security. Yeah.
And the other part of it that was interesting to me was that they were attacking both the ChatGPT part of it as well as the API. So when people kind of came in to use ChatGPT for their whatever they use it for, they sort of saw, hey, we're dealing with a lot of usage right now, which I actually hadn't seen for quite a while because ChatGPT has gotten a lot better about handling and scaling. So that was interesting to see.
Yeah, it's gigantic, and it's wild that, as in a previous discussion, as you said, it's wild that we even noticed this, right? Like how huge OpenAI and ChatGPT got so quickly. So it's interesting that so many people were affected. Um,
Yeah,
and
back like a year ago when I first started using it, it was like kind of hard to even try it out because so many people are using it. It's like the fastest scaling application of all time. And
yeah,
so it does show how far they've come that like we even noticed that there's a little bit of latency. So
for
yeah.
sure, absolutely. Absolutely. The next piece that I want to talk about has a very special, near and dear place to both of our hearts, which was the Infected Slurs campaign. This was something that our team at the CERT found. There were a number of you all that were working on this piece. So for those of you who have not read this, our CERT found two new 0 days that have RCE capability, that were taking advantage of some network video recording devices and other technology, and downloading with admin credentials, and downloading Mirai, so a very popular malware family. It was primarily the Gen X variant, which you may or may not be aware of. It was made famous by utilizing GTA for nefarious purposes to gain their bots. So this one was particularly interesting, and I'm very interested to hear your side of this because y'all worked on it. I know you were a huge part of this. So can you walk me through like, what was interesting to you about it? Maybe some of the more technical specs that I didn't hit on just now.
Sure. Yeah, this was a pretty interesting investigation from the start. So we had two team members that pretty much started this from different angles. We had one team member who had found the original 0 day, which at first she just sort of approached the team and was like, "Hey, I can't find anything about this vulnerability, but it's obviously an RCE. Can you guys look at it with me?" And so then, when stuff like that happens, the whole team kind of comes in and is like, "Okay, if this is a 0 day, this is really important." So we're all looking around and none of us could really find anything about it except for what the intern we have right now, another member of the team. He had actually done a whole bunch of work on this previously, not this vulnerability, but the actual botnet that we eventually tied to it. Well, he eventually tied to it because he recognized some of the domain names, and he looked at some of the history of those, and he basically was able to tie it into a ton of other research he had already done for a different customer. And so then from there, we were able to find the second 0 day from that. And yeah, it was just a really, really cool investigation to just get snowballing, and the whole team just kind of came in on.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was also a huge thing internally as well. There were a lot of people who were interested in learning about it, and it was a really big lift and a big find that we found on one of our honeypots, right? That you yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I work on the honeypots quite a bit, building out different like sort of decoy applications, and then seeing what happens when the attackers sort of come in, and we're trying to elicit a payload from them. We don't want them just like looking around and being like, "Oh, this is a honeypot." So that's essentially what I work on it. And these guys in particular, we were seeing them come in on a really high port number. It was like 30,000 or something like that. It was crazy, which normally you wouldn't necessarily be listening on. So you could tell they were kind of like trying to hide a little bit by like only doing a few ports in a very obscure range. So that they came in on that TCP. So
Gotcha. Yeah. Honeypotting was like one of the first things in security that I found really fascinating. And it's such an awesome tool to have because, as what you just mentioned, you can set it up to specifically find things. And it does give you a really nice landscape of what's actually out there, right? Instead of just what you're seeing. So it's such a great tool to be able to honeypot. Another DDoS attack that was, my apologies. Another DDoS attack that was very large was actually out in Singapore. It affected 46 public healthcare institutions that included things like hospitals, polyclinics, as well as nursing homes and general practitioners. And it's always like cyber is always kind of scary, but anytime we start talking about healthcare, I think it is particularly because it does affect us in our real life. In this, they were able to get it under control, but their doctors and patients lost access to portals and emails and all of these things. It could have been much worse, but DDoS is certainly not dead. Let's just say it that way.
Definitely
Absolutely. Healthcare also, Arden Healthcare was hit with a ransomware attack that was pretty big, also denying people accessing. So it was kind of a rough month for healthcare. That one was also very, very large. And the last one I'm going to speak on before we move over to web shells was Blender. Blender was hit with a DDoS attack that was quite large. They had a 1.5 billion total malicious requests, which peaked at 100,000 requests per second, which is really, really staggering. And I know all of this because of their absolutely incredible disclosure. So I wanted to mention them. The link will be in the show notes here, but it was very thorough. It was very current, and it was very transparent, which, you know, open source companies tend to be that. But I just wanted to say that we love to see it, right? Being very transparent.
Yeah, it was I did get to look at that. It was very refreshing to see, especially when it's just like a DDoS attack, for them to be that transparent and like give us as much details as we could possibly want. It's nice to see. It's what the culture of security also needs. So
yes, absolutely, you are so correct. All right, so we are going to move on now. We have moved out of DDoS. We're going to move into some web shells here. So there were two web shells that were that kind of made some noise. One of them was important to us as well. We found, some of our researchers found WSO-NG, which is the next generation of the WSO web shell that has been around for a while, and it was taking abuse of fake 404 pages, which is a theme that we are seeing a little bit more. There was mage cart attacks that are doing this as well, taking advantage of these third-party plugins and fake 404 pages. There was also an info stealer that was targeting Mac specifically, that was coming in through a fake browser update. So this is a really, really interesting tactic that we have seen a lot of lately. Would you agree, Alan, of using these?
yeah, I feel like attackers just keep getting more and more it's not even, sometimes it's clever, but most of the time they're just getting like just creative, you know? They're getting a little crafty. There's tons of different ways, and a lot of times like the traditional techniques of like using your gut, like, okay, this phishing email looks fishy, like
Yes.
I will obviously not click on this or pay your Bitcoin wallet, right? It's getting a lot more subtle than that. Like another one we had been talking about previously was the malvertising, where it's like getting onto like Google ads or stuff like that, and then you get to like a completely fake page with a solid looking domain name even. So they're getting really clever.
They are. Sadly, they are getting quite clever. And the last one I want to mention was, of course, the hrserve.dll web shell, which made a lot of noise due to their multiple languages that they had their pages in, which was, wow, what a sophistication element. The web shell itself had custom coding for client communications, and it also had in-memory execution. So this was really scary. This was big, bad, and the malware actually dated all the way back to 2021. So that's just something to be aware of, community. And with that, I can't believe it. We're already done. Alan,
Wow.
can you believe that? I feel like we could have kept going. Really quickly before we let everybody go. First off, thank you again for joining. This was so much fun. I will be back solo, just me, on December 14th. This will be the episode 3. Can't believe we're already at episode 3. This is going to be a special episode called Holiday Hacks, and it's going to be talking about some of the things that we see around the holidays, and of course, anything that has happened this particular December, and some famous, or infamous, I should say, holiday hacks. You please see all of the links that we talked about today that will be in the show notes here, and be sure to follow us on X at at Akamai_research. And then see us on our research page as well, akamai.com/security-research. This is the best way to keep up with what we've got going on here at Akamai and at Security Intelligence Group in general. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you, Alan, for getting up so early. And we'll see you later. Thank you.